The twisters that rip through Deer Park and Pasadena serve as just a great reminder of exactly why we need to value our first responders when disaster strikes. Here in the city of Houston, there's a lot of concern emerging that the number of rescuers has fallen to a level that should worry us all, especially in a major crisis. Fox 26's Greg Groogan reports it's actually our paramedics and firefighters raising the alarm.
Flames, floods, and gunfire. Over the past decade, America's fourth largest city has been consistently, often painfully plagued by each. And yet, despite a population that's grown substantially fewer first responders are in place to react and rescue when crisis strikes. The numbers are stark and alarming. In 2010, the city of Houston had 4,100 firefighters and paramedics charged with answering an estimated 220,000 calls. 12 years later, the Firefighters Union tells us HFD is fielding just over 3,600 first responders to contend with nearly 500,000 calls for service, a more than doubling of the emergency workload. A side-by-side comparison of staffing between the nation's third and fourth most populous cities is also telling. Chicago deploys 4,500 firefighters and EMTs to cover 234 square miles. Houston has 900 fewer responders on its payroll to cover 665 square miles, almost 3 times the territory.
We're absolutely at a breaking point. In fact, we're way beyond the breaking point.
Marty Lancton leads the Firefighters Union and says the fatigue his members continue to suffer is psychologically damaging and clearly unsustainable.
The rate of substance abuse, PTSD, and exhaustion, and the worst morale we've ever seen in the history of Houston Fire Department is real. Right now, today. We don't have enough firefighters to fill the spots for minimum staffing.
It's happening everywhere. So all we can do is keep an eye on each other and be there for them. Most of the time it works, and occasionally they slip through the cracks.
Mike Phillips should know. He's recently retired after serving the citizens of Houston for 4 decades, rising to the rank of HFD District Chief. No longer a city employee, Phillips is now willing and able to speak freely.
What you see in the news media generally is the last soundbite you get from the mayor or the fire chief, and that's not the whole truth. The truth of the matter is they're understaffed, underpaid, overworked, and it's come to a head where now people just can't take it anymore.
Phillips says brutal overtime demands and deteriorating conditions have triggered an onslaught of departures.
And the near future doesn't hold any hope for the Houston firefighters. So they're leaving at a rapid rate. This past year, in 2022, we lost 259 firefighters, and 153 of those were young. Even though the administration says all the stations are open, there's somebody at the station, but there's apparatus just sitting there idle with nobody on them.
Chief Phillips believes the shortages are compromising public safety.
When you don't have enough crews out on the street, that means there's going to be a delay in help for the citizens that call for us.
Based solely on the hard numbers, Lancton's assessment is jarring.
I think that this administration has tried to destroy a world-class fire department from within. You don't have the men and women to respond to them on their worst day. Who do you have?
Is that hyperbole?
That's a fact.
And for those who think it's feasible for first responders to do more with less, Mike Phillips has a suggestion.
Go visit fire stations and speak to them and find out what the real truth is. Then they'll know what kind of crisis we're in.
Houston Fire Chief Sam Pena is disputing the union's numbers, claiming the department lost only 179 firefighters in 2022, not 259. More significantly, Pena insists the number of calls answered last year was more than 100,000 less than reported by the rank-and-file men and women he leads. That said, Pena concedes that his force is currently understaffed and the workload has increased substantially year after year. In the studio, Greg Groogan, Fox 26 News.